Hello everyone. This is the first lecture of the series of lectures I'm going to upload for the benefit of students preparing for class 11th, 12th, and state and national level exams like JEE Mains and Advanced. In these lectures, I'll assume minimal understanding of the topic discussed and will explain it from basics of the topic and slowly move to advanced level. But I guarantee you that you won't get bored. I'll be also making marking topics which are specifically meant for national level exams so that students who are preparing just for boards can skip those topics. Also, I believe exams are the test of efficiency and hence will keep giving you tips and tricks wherever required. So without taking your time, let's start. In this first topic, I'll be discussing about basics of mathematics. In this topic, I'll be discussing about the number system, the ratios and proportions, indices and law of indices, important identities, remainder and factor theorem, and logarithms. These might seem to be easy topics, but I have observed during my 8+ years of teaching experience that the students struggle in these basic concepts. I know these are mostly the ones which you have already learned in your previous classes, but in this session, we'll be just brushing up these concepts and filling up gaps if there are any. Basically, I don't want to take any chances, etc. as such. So, but we'll quickly take you through this. I would strongly recommend you to go through this to have a solid start. As discussed earlier, will start with the number system, the symbols by which these are denoted, and particular numbers which are part of these sets. We'll start with natural numbers. Natural numbers are represented by the letter N, okay, and consist of the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on till infinity. Okay, there should not be a number 0 included in natural numbers. So 0 is not included in natural numbers. We have to be very clear about it. Whole numbers is actually the set of natural numbers including zeros. So n does not include 0, but whole numbers include 0. Then comes the set of integers, which is represented by a capital Z. These include all the numbers 1, 2, 3 up to infinity with 0 and the negative numbers. The positive integers represented by Z plus is nothing but same as natural numbers. Some people sometimes get confused whether 0 is included in set of positive integers, that is Z plus, or not. I have to make this clear that 0 is not included in this set. So we have to be a bit careful while we are including these. Talking about negative numbers are just the negative numbers like -1, -2, -3, and so on till minus infinity. The rational numbers, which are represented by Q, is the set of all the numbers which can be expressed in P by Q form, where Q is not equal to 0 and HCF of P and Q is 1. That means P and Q should be co-prime. Now, you must have, in your previous classes, you must have gone through proving some of the problems, etc., where you have to prove some number to be irrational. So you start with the contradiction method, where you assume that irrational number to be equal to P by Q, with, of course, these conditions that Q is not equal to 0 and HCF of P and Q is 1. And then during the course of proving, you prove that by taking that assumption, P and Q, HCF of P and Q is not coming out to be equal to 1. And hence our initial assumption for proving or assuming number to be a rational number was incorrect, and hence that number, the given number, is an irrational number. So in case of irrational numbers, it's the same thing, almost same, a similar thing. Set of all numbers which cannot be expressed in P by Q form, where Q is not equal to 0 and HCF of P and Q is 1. So in case of rational numbers, the numbers can be expressed in P by Q form, while in case of irrational numbers, the numbers cannot be expressed in the P by Q form. This is represented by Q bar, the set of irrational numbers. Now comes the set of all real numbers, which is represented by capital R. It's a complete set of rational and irrational numbers. So Q and Q bar combined forms the set of real numbers. Then comes the complex number, which is represented by C. It's the set of all the numbers which can be represented in x plus iy form, where x and y are real numbers. X and y are real numbers, but I is imaginary. I square is equal to -1. Of course, we have not learned about it. We have not discussed about it. So there is a separate topic altogether for complex numbers. So we need not to worry about it for now. Okay. Talking about prime numbers. So even though it does not form, or it is not a major part of the number system, but these type of numbers are pretty important. Hence, I have included this in this table. So number which are divisible by 1 or itself are called prime numbers, which are like 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, and so on. I'm guessing you guys, all guys are aware of it. Remember this is pretty important. Okay, so basically CRQZN, C is set of complex numbers, R is nothing but set of real numbers, Q is set of rational numbers, Z is integers, and N is natural numbers. So N is the smallest set, Z becomes bigger than that, then comes Q, then R, and then C. So generally, if you wish, you can remember this entire sets in this order. Moving ahead, we'll talk about ratios and proportions. Again, a very easy topic. Again, something which you might have learned in your 6th, 7th, 8th class, but just for the sake of completion, I'm taking it up again here. So ratios are represented by a symbol colon, okay, and proportions is represented by double colon. Double colon basically means an equal to sign, and ratio or colon symbol basically means a division sign. So I have jotted down all the properties of proportions here. Okay, like addendo, you might not be remembering it by names, etc., but I'm pretty sure that you must be remembering these by the properties as such. So addendo, dividendo, componendo, alternando, invertendo, and the most important one is componendo and dividendo. Okay, so you can observe if the two ratios are equal, what all things etc. we can do through this page. Okay, and the most important would be componendo dividendo, because sometimes it solves the problem in a fraction of a second, right? So that's why I have highlighted in a red color and separate color altogether, because this is an important one, and this is something which you should not be skipping. And whenever you are seeing ratios etc. coming into picture, then you should try to apply componendo and dividendo wherever possible. Moving ahead, I'll be talking about laws of indices. Again, a pretty much known topic, something which you have learned in your 7th, 8th class. Okay, but for the sake of completion, I'm doing it here again. So here, a power or an index is used to write the product of numbers very compactly. So if I want to write a into a into a, rather than writing that, I'll write a cube. Okay, so something of that sort. There are certain properties etc. which are called laws of indices. Okay, which is a power m into a power n is a power m plus n, a power minus m is equals to 1 by a power m. You can, this is a reciprocal law. A power m by a power n, you can write it in the concise form, a power m minus n. A power m power n is a power mn. So these two get multiplied together. When the same thing is distributed power n, it can be distributed outside also. So a power n into b power n. A power 0 or anything power 0 should be always 1. A power n equal to a power m, then that implies that n is equal to m. Because this base is same, the powers are required to be same, otherwise they cannot be equal. Now if the powers are same but the bases are different, okay, then that implies that the power itself is 0. This is a very important property, okay, which people might be skipping. Please go ahead and remember this. If the bases are different and the powers are same, okay, and the two numbers are equal, that implies that the power is nothing but 0. It can't happen without that, because a power 0 is equal to b power 0 and both will be equal to 1 in this case. Okay, very clearly I have put it as an important note that m and n, wherever these are given here, okay, can be fractional, rational or irrational numbers also. Okay, these can be any real numbers. Even these can be complex numbers. Okay, we have not learned about complex numbers till now, but yeah, from future perspective, these can be even complex numbers. So you need not to worry about these. These laws will be always and always applicable. Okay. Moving ahead, I'll be talking about some of the important identities which we should be knowing and which are pretty much required for solving some of the problems, basically in algebra. Okay, but these will be required in calculus, etc. as well, because a lot of problems, or even in trigonometry as such, because a lot of problems can be boiled down to these important identities. Uh, which if known can be solving those problems very easily. So to give you a glimpse, you are aware of a plus b whole square, a minus b whole square, a minus b into a plus b, the combination of a plus b whole square and a minus b whole square, which is nothing but just subtracting the top two identities. These two identities, will be getting this identity. Then comes the cubic forms, the a plus b whole cube and a minus b whole cube. Okay. What you should observe here is these are not different identities actually. So if you will notice here, okay, rather than just remembering it, see it from this perspective also, that if b is replaced by minus b, if b plus b is replaced by minus b, you will get the second identity from the first identity. So you have to replace b with minus b everywhere. So it would be a square plus 2a of minus b, which will give you minus 2ab, plus minus b whole square, which will give you b square itself. So these two identities are even related to each other. So these are not separate identities. Here, just plus b is replaced by minus b. Okay. Something similar happens for a plus b whole cube and a minus b whole cube as well. For a plus b whole cube, a cube plus b cube plus 3ab, a plus b. Okay. But when plus b is replaced by minus b, everywhere, just replace in this identity itself plus b with minus b. So a cube minus b whole cube, which is minus b cube, plus 3a minus b, which is minus 3ab, a minus b, which is a minus b. Make sense? Okay. Coming back to the squares again, okay, but in the triplet forms. So a plus b plus c whole square is a square plus b square plus c square plus 2ab plus 2bc plus 2cn. Now, with the knowledge of what we have just learned here, that b is replaced by minus b and so on, somebody can even ask you, or you must have learned also, at a minus b plus c whole square. Okay, what you have to do is just replace plus b with minus b everywhere. So if I'm asking you for a minus b plus c whole square, it would be a square plus minus b whole square, which is b square itself, plus c square, and it would be minus 2ab minus 2bc plus 2ca. So in this case, it would be simple that if I'm asking for a minus b plus c whole square, it would be a square plus minus b whole square plus c square plus 2a minus b plus 2 minus bc plus 2ca, which would be equal to a square plus b square plus c square minus 2ab minus 2bc and minus 2ca. I hope that is clear. Okay, and this can be changed for anything, like if a is replaced with minus a, or b is replaced with minus b, or c is replaced with minus c, or even two of them is replaced with, the logic remains same. You can change the formula, etc. You need not to remember each and every formula for different a, b and c, positive or negative. Moving ahead, uh, so a square plus b square plus c square minus ab minus bc minus ca. Okay, this can be written as half of a minus b whole square plus b minus c whole square plus c minus a whole square. Okay, you can check it. Just multiply throughout by 2. You will get a minus b whole square plus b minus c whole square plus c minus a whole square. Okay, but a very important property which comes out here is that the right hand side is always and always going to be positive, because a minus b whole square is positive, this is positive, and this is positive. When all the three are positive, this quantity, whatever happens to a, b or c, a can be positive or negative, b can be positive or negative, c can be positive or negative. There is no restriction on a, b and c. But this quantity a square plus b square plus c square will always be greater than ab plus bc plus ca, because the right hand side is greater than 0. That's an important property. Please remember that. Next one would be a cube plus b cube plus c cube minus 3abc, which is a plus b plus c plus the same thing, a square plus b square plus c square minus ab minus bc minus ca. Okay, so you can guess, of course, that this part is going to be always positive. Okay, no doubt about that, whatever might be the value of a, b and c. Now the conditions, the two conditions I have talked about, okay, here is if a plus b plus c is 0. Okay, this is one of the important properties which you must have learned in your 8th or 9th class. Okay, is when a plus b plus c is 0, a cube plus b cube plus c cube is equal to 3abc. Okay, and if a plus b plus c is greater than 0, then, since, understand this, a plus b plus c is greater than 0, and this quantity is already greater than 0. Okay, so this entire quantity, this multiplied with this is greater than 0, and this is also greater than 0. Okay, so if a plus b plus c is greater than 0, then this quantity will be positive. That implies a cube plus b cube plus c cube is greater than or equal to 3abc. These two properties are pretty important. Okay, the next batch of properties which come here is a cube plus b cube plus a cube plus b cube, which can be expressed as a plus b to a square minus ab plus b square. Again, a cube minus b cube, again same thing, b is replaced with minus b basically. So everywhere just replace b with minus b, and you will get the a cube minus b cube form. Okay, a power 4 minus b power 4 can be written as a square minus b square into a square plus b square, which can be further written down as a minus b into a plus b into a square plus b square. talking about this very important one. See, why I am telling you all these, because I want you to understand that these things can be expressed as factors or product of two numbers or product of two quantities. Okay, and sometimes those would be very important for cancelling out some, certain things. Okay, like if something divided by something is given to you and you have to cancel out something, some of the parts. Okay, then the factorization etc would be required, and these identities would be quite handy for you. Something similar for this, which is a power 4 plus 2a plus a square plus 1. A power 4 plus a square plus 1. Okay, now this is all positive. This is a positive quantity, positive quantity, positive quantity. Generally the perception is we cannot factorize it. Okay, but to your amazement, or you might be already knowing that a power 4, so what I have done is I have added a square and subtracted a square here. So I can write this as a power 4 plus 2a square plus 1 minus a square. So it will come out to be a square plus a plus 1 into a square minus a plus 1. And this can be written as a square plus 1 whole square. So a square plus 1 whole square minus a square, which is something of a square minus b square kind of a formula. And I have splitted it here. What I'll recommend is just to remember all these identities. These are quite handy identities which you must be requiring in your future course. So yeah, like pretty much required for doing the problems in mathematics efficiently. Moving on to the next topic, which would be polynomials. Again, again repeating the same thing, pretty much known to everybody here because we are already in 11th 12th class. So but still, for the sake of completion, I'll be talking about polynomials. Polynomials are the expressions that include variables, coefficients and exponents. So x is the variable here, 3 is the coefficient here. 3 is the coefficient of x square. We say it to be coefficient of x square. Minus 5 is the coefficient of x. And 6 is the constant term. Okay. So 3 is the coefficient of x square. Minus 5 is the coefficient of x. And 6 is the constant term. Generally we denote the polynomials by in terms of x. Okay, but yeah, there is no restriction that it has to be expressed in terms of x. It can be in y, z, a, b, c, whatever. Okay, it should not matter much. Okay, but we should be very clear about what is the variable, what is the coefficient, and what are the exponents, etc. What are the constants. Okay, so it is very important to note, and I have highlighted also that for a polynomial to be called polynomial, it has to have all the powers as natural numbers. Okay, like the power of x is 2 and the power of x is 1. It can't be a negative number. It can't be a fractional number. It can't be an irrational number, of course. Okay, something divided by something like 3x square minus 5x plus 6 divided by 2x minus 3 is not a polynomial. Okay, so we have to be very clear about what is the definition of polynomial. Okay, it can be a polynomial by polynomial, that's a separate thing, but when talking about polynomial, it has to be just positive natural numbers as the powers of x and nothing else. Okay, the highest power of x in px is called the degree of the polynomial. So I can say it's a polynomial with second degree. The degree of the polynomial in this case is 2. Okay, for cubic functions of cubic polynomials, the degree of the polynomial is 3. Okay, for biquadratic it is 4. Then there are polynomials of degree 5, polynomials of degree 6, 7, 8, 10, 20, 30, can be of any power. Okay, but very clearly degree of a polynomial has to be greater than equal to 1. Okay, it is represented by the degree, this is the symbol degree of px. We read it like degree of px. If a polynomial has a degree of greater than equal to 1, okay, and p of a is 0, okay, so we substitute some value a to this polynomial. So if p of a, what does p of a means? P of a means 3a square minus 5a plus 6. Okay, p of Sachin means 3 of Sachin square minus 5 of Sachin plus 6. It's as simple as that. X, whatever that variable name would be, that would be replaced. So P of 2 would be 3 times 2 square minus 5 times 2 plus 6. P of minus 2 would be 3 times minus 2 whole square minus 5 into minus 2 plus 6. Okay. Okay, so what I was, where I was actually, if the polynomial px has a degree greater than equal to 1 and p of a is 0, p of some number is 0, then x minus a is called the 0 of the polynomial. X minus a is the factor of the polynomial. A is called the 0 of the polynomial. In short, if pa is equal to 0, then x minus a divides the polynomial px. Okay, so whenever if I substitute some value in the polynomial and that comes out to be 0, then x minus that value is going to divide that polynomial for sure. Okay, and the vice versa is also true. If x minus a divides the polynomial px, then p of a will definitely be 0. Okay, the last statement. If x minus a divides the polynomial px, then p of a will definitely be 0. Here comes the remainder theorem. Okay, pretty much again known to you all guys, but again repeating it. The remainder theorem states that when a polynomial px is divided by a linear polynomial x minus a, then the remainder of that division will be equivalent to p of a. So if any polynomial is divided by x minus a, px is any polynomial, can be of second order, third order, second degree, third degree, fourth degree, can be of anything. Okay, but when it is divided by a linear polynomial, that's why I have highlighted linear polynomial of x minus a, then you can do the long division, etc. But what you will find out that the remainder will always come out to be p of a. Okay, I have given an example also. We can probably discuss this example. Okay, find the remainder when fx is divided by x minus 3. Now the usual process would be that I will be writing out x minus 3 divided by this long polynomial x power 4 plus 3x cube minus 6x square minus 6x plus 8. Okay, and I'll be trying to solve it by a long division method. But yeah, and ultimately I'll get some remainder. Okay, after solving this, I'll get some remainder. The beautiful part would be I need not to do all these things because of this remainder theorem. It states that p of a would be the remainder of this function fx. Okay, of this polynomial fx. So what I have to do, I have to just simply put, or I have to, the remainder would be, in this case, would be f of 3 and nothing else. And I have to just quickly substitute all the values here and I'll be able to solve for it. 3 power 4 plus 3 into 3 cube, which is again 3 power 4 in a way, minus 6 into 3 square minus 6 into 3 plus 8. Okay, which will come out to be 81 plus 81 minus 9 6 are 54 minus 18 plus 8, which is, and which can be easily solved basically. 162 minus 72 plus 8, which is 64, okay, which is 98. Okay, so I hope this is pretty clear. See how easily I was able to find out the remainder when this big polynomial is divided by x minus 3. If I would have done with the usual way, it would have taken a lot of time for me to solve this problem. So that's why remainder theorem is going to be pretty handy for you to find out remainders quickly in cases whenever required. Talking about the factor theorem. So if a polynomial fx is divided by a polynomial gx, then fx can be written as gx into qx plus rx. This is something similar to what you have already learned. I'll write it in the regular form so that you guys can recognize it. Okay, it's like this. So gx is dividing it and fx is getting divided. What will happen is on solution, okay, there will be some remainder rx and there will be some quotient qx. Okay, and what I can do, I can write fx is nothing but gx into qx plus rx, and this is something which is the factor theorem. Okay, fx is the dividend, gx is the divisor, qx is the quotient, and r is the remainder. Okay, very clearly these two statements are very important. Okay, degree of qx, I can estimate the degree of qx just by seeing the question. Okay, degree of qx would be always degree of fx minus degree of gx. Okay, and it'll sound pretty obvious if I'll ask you a question or so, right? That okay, 3x, or I can, this is the example. Okay, this is a fifth order question, okay, divided by a second order question. Obviously, when you will divide it, first term of the quotient will come out to be some what, 4 by 3x square. Okay, when you will divide this by this, the first term of the quotient will come out to be 4 by 3x square, and hence you can estimate the degree of quotient then and there itself. Degree of quotient would be 2. Okay, because degree of fx is, sorry, degree of quotient is 3, because it would be 4 by 3x cube, sorry. So degree of fx is 5, degree of gx is 2, so degree of quotient would be 3. I mistakenly said 2 earlier, it would be 3. And degree of Rx has to be strictly less than degree of Gx. It can't be even equal to degree of Gx. Because if it is equal to degree of Gx, there would be a scope of division, right? So degree of Rx has to be strictly less than degree of Gx. So degree of quotient in this case, degree of quotient will be equal to 3, and degree of Rx will be either 0 or 1. Okay, right now I don't know. It has to be less than that of Gx, strictly less than that of Gx, which is 2. So it can be either 0 or 1. It can be a constant. Rx can come out to be a constant or a linear function, which I don't know right now. But yeah, degree of Qx will be definitely 3. Okay. So, and hence I have given you another example where I have asked you to actually take any linear function, okay, and any polynomial function, and just try and check by actual division that if this divided by this the remainder comes out to be equal to P3 or not, P of 3 or not, because I've taken x minus 3. That's why I said check whether P of 3 is equal to the remainder found by the actual division. If that is the case, we are actually verifying the remainder theorem. Okay, so these are the questions on factor theorem and the remainder theorem. I hope these are clear. I'm quickly going to jump to the logarithms. Okay, this is a topic which is generally not taught in CBSE board, but taught to ICSE board students and some other board students as well. Okay, but particularly for CBSE students, it's a problem as such because it's never there in their course. But this is something which I want to cover up for this for the completion of this course. So why logarithms are used? Logarithms are nothing but they are going to change your very big numbers into very small numbers. Okay, like 10 power 7 log with the base 10, 10 power 7 would be just 7. So 10 power 7 is a big number. Log with the base 10, 1 crore will be just 7. So yeah, it generally converts a big number into a very small number. It can convert a complex multiplication or division into addition and subtraction respectively. Okay, so it is also very widely used in the topics like calculus, complex numbers. Complex numbers, you will find a lot of usage of logarithms and inequalities, etc. Okay, so let us understand what is log. I have already explained you where it is used. It is used to convert big numbers into small numbers. And of course, complex multiplication like 7-digit multiplied by a 10-digit number. Okay, now this is going to be a very long calculation as such, but with logarithms, you can convert into just a small numbers of addition. So a 7-digit number will come out to be just 7 or 8 or 9 or something of that sort, plus a 10-digit number will come out to be 10 or 11, and you have to just add 7 plus 11 and you will be able to get the answer. So it would be of that sort. So talking about logarithms, okay, a log has a base, okay, and a number, okay. Few important things. Log is defined for only positive numbers, okay. This n can not be even 0. It is defined for only positive numbers. So n can take the value 0 0.1, 0 0.2, 0 0.0001, okay, 0.1, 0.2, 10, 20, 30, 40, 100, 200. All values are valid, but it has to be positive. Okay, this is very important. N has to be positive. It can be very close to 0, but not 0. Okay, something similar with base also. Base also needs to be a positive number. So these are the constraints which are basically because of the definition of logarithms, how we have defined logarithms. Okay, we'll learn about a lot of logarithms, etc., in the functions chapter, which we will be covering in the over the next over few lectures, etc. But yeah, so the from the functions actually there come some constraints on a and n. So for n, the constraint was it has to be a positive number. Any positive number is valid. So n can take any value which is greater than 0, not even 0. Okay. For a which is the base can take all the positive values. Okay, something similar to n, but there is one more condition to it. A can also be not equal to 1. Okay, we'll talk about why a cannot be equal to 1 probably in the functions chapter. But yeah, that's a constraint that n has to be positive. A has to be also positive and not equal to 1. So there are two conditions on a and one condition on n. N has to be positive. A can be greater than 0, but a cannot be equal to 1. Okay, that is one part. So that is understanding of log. Okay, the symbol log, the number, and the base. Now comes the, there are two types of log. Okay, uh, log with the base e is this base, when the base is e, so we say it to be log with the base a n, or log n with the base a. We say it interchangeably, log with the base a n, or log n with the base a. Okay, so when we have the base as e, which is an irrational number which is equal to 2.718 and so on, okay, approximately 2.718, it is called a natural log. When this value of base comes out to be equal to e, it is called a natural log. Okay, and it can be written as log with the base e n, or also can be written as ln n. Ln of that number, log with the base e, can be shorthandly written as ln. Okay, so these are some notations which you should be aware of while doing the problems. So that's why these are getting covered here. Sometimes log is not written with any base. Okay, then 10 is considered to be the default base. So if somebody says log 20, it is it basically means log with the base 10, 20. Okay, or log 20 with the base 10, same thing. Okay, so whenever just log 20 is written, it means log 20 with the base 10. Okay, there comes the properties of logarithms. Okay, these are few properties, very important properties actually, will be required for you to solve problems of logarithms. Okay, as I said in the previous page also, that it converts complex multiplication or division into addition and subtraction, and these are the properties which you will notice, the first two properties here. Okay, so log of x into y is log of x plus log of y. Okay, the base remains same, of course, no doubt about it. Okay, but multiplication is getting converted into addition. Log of x into y is log of x plus log of y. Log of x divided by y is log of x minus log of y. The powers, the log with the base a, x power n, okay, n jumps down. Okay, the powers, it is basically something like x into x into x into x, which can be written as log x plus log x plus log x, which is n log x. So that is how we are getting this, or in a shorthand we say that the powers jump down, and we say it to be n log x. Okay, this is the change of base property with log b with the base a. Okay, I can change the base of the log to any number. Log b with the base c. Okay, and c can be any number. Of course, the constraints on c is c has to be greater than 0 and c cannot be equal to 1, of course. Okay, but uh, I can change it to any other value. So if this was a complicated thing altogether given to me, I can change the base to the thing which I'm comfortable with. Okay, so log b with the base c divided by log a with the base c, and c can be anything. It can be 10 also. It can be e also. Sometimes the log with the base e values are generally given to you. Then you can change the base from here to here. Okay, sometimes log with the base 10 is given to you, so you can change the base from here to log with the base 10. Okay, so this is a change of base property, pretty important again. Something similar from here itself. Okay, log with the base b, log with the base a b is 1 by log with the base b a. These can be interchanged, but as soon as these are interchanged, these are reciprocal of each other. Okay, and the most important one, log with the base a b is equal to m then a power m is b. This is important. This is the important relation which you should know. So these three are going to be very, very important relations, the ones in green and red. Okay, log with the base a b m is a power m equals b. Okay, some of the properties or some of the facts which can be derived easily from these things is log 1 with any base has to be equal to 0. Log 1 is always 0. Log a with base a is 1. So if the number and the base is same, the answer is always going to be equal to 1. If the number is 1, then the answer is always going to be 0. When the number and the base is same, the answer is always going to be equal to 1. Something similar, log with the base a power n jumps down and it would be log with the base a. And log with the base a is 1. So n into 1, which is n. So yeah, this is also an important property. Okay, the reciprocal property, log with the base a 1 by b. Now this can be written as log with the base a b power minus 1. Okay, and minus 1 jumps out. So minus log with the base a b. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. Okay, this is also very interesting. This is also a change of base property, use of change of base property. So if the number of the first log and the base of the second log is same, okay, these will be not retained and would be log with the base AC. Okay, pretty handy, pretty important property. So yeah, can be derived very easily through this. If you want to try it, you can try it out also. Okay, and this again property, a very good one property that you understand this, right? Log with the base a power m b power n. Again, using the change of base property, you can prove that to be equal to n by m log with the base a b. Okay, so these are the important properties which are derived from these basic properties, and these are quite handy properties which you should remember as such. Okay, next we will talk about the values of logarithms. Okay, I'm just going to give you a glimpse of it. Generally this part is not there in JEE syllabus, and even in most of the syllabuses out, okay, for 11th, 12th, etc. But I just wanted to give you a glimpse of it, just because whenever it comes, you should be prepared for it. Okay, if it comes ever. So, so how the values of log is calculated? Okay, the values of logs are generally are solved using log tables. Okay, you must have seen log tables. I'm pretty sure about it. Okay, these are long tables given at the back of some of the books where they will give you some values of 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay, with some decimal numbers and lot big table altogether. Okay, with the base 10 in general. Okay, it's generally given with the base 10, or it might be given with the base E also. So some of the books, etc., actually talk about natural log, which is log with the base E. But in general, the books will give you the values with the log with the base 10. Okay. So I'll make you understand what does log with the base 10, 15 means. Okay. So it is basically 15 can be written as 1.5 into 10 power 1. Okay. So this 1, okay, is written here. Okay, and log of 1.5 is found out through the log table, which comes out to be 0.176. Okay, and then these two are added to say the solution to be 1.176. Okay, this part is called the characteristic, and this part is called the mantissa. Now these are just the names, not much relevance altogether, but yes, people can ask you for 1.5 what is the characteristic. Okay, and then you should be knowing that what do they mean actually. Okay, so what you can do quickly is 1.5 into 10 power 1, and that 1 would be the characteristic. For 1500, it can be written as 1.5 into 10 power 3. So 3 should be the characteristic. For 0.15, it can be written as 1.5 into 10 power minus 1. So minus 1 should be the characteristic. Okay. And of course, in all the three cases, we are doing 1.5, log of 1.5 here also, here also, here also. Okay, so it would be 0.176 in all the three cases. Okay, so in these all cases, we have to just add characteristic and mantissa to get the value of the log. Okay, so this is an overall glimpse of the various topics which were the prerequisite to start with the bigger topics of 11th class and 12th class and for national level exams. Okay, so please go through these topics thoroughly before entering into the world of difficult questions. Okay, because if your concepts here are clear, then you should be thorough. You should be okay. Okay, so yeah, to get the PDF of these notes and to get more questions on the topic or to start online classes on weekends with me, you can WhatsApp me on this number. Please subscribe this, like it, share it, comment on the videos, etc. And your comments actually would be read, and I'll try to answer as many as possible. And we'll see you in the next lecture. Thank you.